Give me Furybound right now. Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about Direbound and I'm getting into full spoilers, so if you haven't read the book, go away, read it, come back. And if you have, oh my god, let's talk about it in the comments. I had a really good feeling about this book when I bought it. I was like, this is going to be the one, this is going to be an exciting read that I can't put down. And I was so right and I'm so happy. If you're watching this video, you've read the book, so I'm not going to get into the synopsis. Let's just kind of go through all of the plot beats and react to what happened and theorise about what might happen in the future. So we start out, Merrin is like an alley cat street fighter. She's got this boyfriend who's like a palace messenger called Lee, and she's got her sister and her mum who's got mental health problems. And she seems to get violent and have hallucinations. Her sister is taken by the nabbers when she happens to be right outside with Lee, this palace messenger. And I thought, you know what? Lee's going to have something to do with this. And I was right. But you know what? At this point, he was still quite convincing. And the only thing that bothered me about him at this point was that he kept calling her kitten, kind of gave me the ick. And I'm glad that that little icky feeling was validated by the end of the book. Merrin joins the military. She goes into the bonding trials, as we know from the blurb, and we know she's going to bond. But I thought the whole sequence of her scaling the mountain, her meeting Venna and Isabel, and forming a friendship with them, I really enjoyed that. I really liked the representation of Venna being deaf and them using sign language, and her making an effort to learn some sign language further down the line. I thought this whole sequence was really exciting. Like climbing the mountain, there was a lot of peril. There was other minor characters that we met that didn't make it and died, and it was quite savage. And we were also introduced to Jonah, who is a bit of an antagonist, though he's kind of giving like Jack from Fourth Wing a bit nondescript, a bit non-complex, although his hate for Merrin is a little bit more justified given the fight they have than Jack's is for Violet, I think. It's a little bit more rooted in genuine discrimination against the commoners. I'm actually surprised that he's made it to the end of the book alive. It makes me think that he's going to play a bigger role going forwards in Furybound and that we'll eventually see him die now that he's made it through the bonding trials. I thought when she finally makes it to the top and bonds with Inassa, it was quite a good twist that Inassa kind of refused to give her a ride down the mountain and she had to make it on her own. Really showed Merrin's determination and made me root for her, the fact that she did it and actually made it on time on foot. And Inassa showed up just at the last minute to get her through the door. It was like a total whirlwind of the first 100 pages. Then we get into the castle, we see all of the opulence, and we see Merrin's discomfort with it and with the culture coming from her different culture in the poorer, more commoner side of the city. We start the bonding trials and we start to see a lot of really gross behaviour from the king, where he kind of treats the bonded like his own personal courtesans, like he views them as livestock almost, just for his own gratification. I thought that was really sickly and a really interesting element that was brought in. And of course, here we get the twist that Lee is actually not Lee the commoner, he is the Crown Prince Killian. And I probably should have seen this coming, but this had me a little bit gagged in the moment. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe it. I can't believe he lied. But it makes sense because he was in the blurb of the book, and up until that point, I was like, okay, well, Stark's obviously going to be a love interest or a love question mark, and so is Killian, and so is Lee. I thought that's too many people. So having Lee be the Crown Prince and making it two people, that was good. I liked that. It was a twist that I didn't quite see coming, unlike all of the other twists, which I did. But I thought this was great. It was a great challenge for her. We see her, feeling really betrayed and heartbroken by this, but slowly coming to terms with it and ending up getting back together with him. And, he seems nice, he seems supportive. He doesn't do anything too suspicious, although at this point I was definitely very suspicious of him and kind of knew that in the end of the book he would be a big betrayer. And now that his identity was revealed, he starts, investing and taking care of her mother and things like that, which I thought was also fishy because he had the money and the resources to help her the whole time and didn't. He also starts looking into the nabbers, arresting people, saying he's putting a stop to it, which he could have been doing this whole time over the past year. and didn't just keep his cover, which isn't very moral and is why I had a lot of question marks over him and his true character. But I thought he hid it and gaslit her very well. I thought by the end of the book, it was actually interesting looking back at their dynamic from the beginning and all of the sex that they had. It was always very dominant on his part. He would always call her kitten, kind of a play on the alley cat and downplaying her. He would like make her cry during the interactions. He would be quite dominant, display some like BDSM kind of stuff, which she enjoyed and liked, and he would make her beg, and that seemed to be the dynamic that they had. And she found pleasure in that. So at the time, I was like, well, it's consensual and she likes it, but something about it is making me uncomfortable. And it was kind of subtle. But in the end, I was completely proved right. Like, there was something uncomfortable and not healthy within that sexual dynamic that they had. It became very clear that he actually was trying to make her submit and really enjoying the power play of downplaying her power because he knew that she was a secret royal. He knew that his family stole the throne from her and he was getting off on the power of that and also gaslighting her. And I thought that was actually such an interesting direction for that romance because we get that dynamic quite a lot in romantasy. We kind of get it in like Quicksilver and in Akatar, but it's kind of portrayed as like, oh, well, it's healthy and it's just consensual. But I think in this instance, it was very morally grey and it was actually very complex. And like, while it was consensual at the time, she also couldn't really give true consent because she didn't really know who he was and he was gaslighting her and basically manipulating her and emotionally abusing her this whole time. And I think that was quite a good lesson. You know, just because someone says the right things and is handsome and you know, are connected to them and enjoying your time with them doesn't mean that they are not a bad guy. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be wary and be a bit skeptical of people that seem too good to be true. And I like that it takes enemies to lovers and flips it on its head. So, like here, I would say the Prince Killian is the main love interest of this story, even though Stark is introduced, and we'll get to him in a minute. But her and Killian's dynamic really is a lovers to enemies arc, which was really interesting and such a good reversal. Over the course of the story, she goes through the bonding trials, which I won't get into because I think they could have actually been a little bit more exciting, but I still enjoyed the conflict she had with Anassa and with the other Rawbound in the competition. She butts heads quite a lot with Stark, who's the alpha of one of the other packs, the kind of violent packs, Deimos. He seems to like want her dead, and they have quite an interesting dynamic. They're kind of enemies, but like it's a bit unclear in the beginning why he has so much animosity towards her. Is it just that she's a commoner, or is it something else? And at this point, I predicted that he was bonded with the wolf that is mate bonded to Anassa. This is revealed to Meryn much later, towards the end of the book, but it becomes quite obvious and there's quite a lot of clues, and you can piece it together and kind of watch her figure it out eventually. It's actually funny that she didn't figure it out until he's literally right in front of her and she's kind of in denial because there was so much foreshadowing and there was so much like sexual chemistry between the two of them, even though there was this animosity. They're pushed together even more when she becomes alpha. Another thing that I could have predicted, but like was still a really good, exciting moment that added in a whole another interesting dynamic. He starts giving her alpha lessons, combat lessons. He kind of beats the shit out of her quite a lot, which is a bit problematic. But I think for military training academy, and given that she has fought men her whole life, I don't think it's that problematic in the context. But mm, it's still a bit questionable. It's a bit like in Quicksilver where Kingfisher keeps beating up Ceres in the beginning, and that's not great. Not great optics, a bit abusive, even when it's kind of justified by the narrative and the plot. So I didn't like that he beat her up, but it made sense, I guess. They go to the front together. We have like a one bed kind of scene, which I rolled my eyes at a little bit. Even though it made sense for the plot, it did feel like it was written as a trope, specifically to fulfill that reader desire, but it was still good. It made sense within the story, I suppose. It felt semi natural. And they two work together really well on this mission at the front, even though they don't succeed in finding Sayla. They have a lot of heated moments where it becomes very clear that they're bonded, even though she doesn't see that yet. And it tells us as a reader that yes, there's probably going to be a romance with these two, but we don't really get that by the end of this book. They kind of become allies, and she finds out that he has been charged with protecting her royal line for this whole time. And I think we're going to get their enemies to lovers arc in the next book, because by the end of this book, they're not enemies, they're kind of enemies at the start, at least from her perspective. And by the end, they're good allies, I would say, but not lovers yet. So I like that we've got a bit more of a slow burn there. And because Killian turned out to be so corrupt, we don't need to worry about this like cheating trope, because there was a moment there where it was like, oh, she's going to cheat on Killian with him and she can barely restrain herself. But now it's like, who cares if she cheats on him, because he's a piece of shit and he deserves it. Then, towards the end of the book, we get to the end of the bonding trials. She kind of makes it through, and so do a few of our main characters, although Henry doesn't make it, which is sad. She puts him out of his misery. And then all shit breaks loose, and we uncover a lot of secrets about the royal family and about who Meryn really is. So, with Bennett's help, she discovers that Sayla has been under her feet the whole time. She's in a prison underneath the castle, and the children that are taken there from the slums are being drained by the king, who hosts this old 500-year-old king of the Siphons. And this king transfers his consciousness to Killian in the end. We find out that Meryn is actually the true queen of the country, and that this whole toxic dynamic and this toxicity in the bonding trials was never even needed. This was just all put there by the king and the Siphons. It sort of handles that criticism that Fourth Wing has, where people say it's stupid that you know, the different dragon riders are killing each other in order to thin the ranks. Doesn't really make sense logically from the military standpoint, who need more soldiers. You could make that same argument about this book and how they cull riders unnecessarily, but this whole twist makes that all make sense. And it shows that the king has been putting the bonded against each other, trying to keep their numbers down this whole time. So it actually brings in a rationalization for this. And this also answers why her mum and everyone else in her female line has gone crazy and started to hallucinate. It's because they all actually need to bond with the wolves and they haven't been able to. And when they don't bond with wolves, everything just kind of comes out as a vision, all of these memories of their true line and all of these secrets. So Meryn gets her mother's journals, looks at the book that Stark has in his office, and manages to figure out this mystery for herself, even though Stark and Anassa cannot help her because of the blood magic. And it's good. It's nice that she's got a lot of agency and she gets to discover this for herself. She's able to retrieve the crown, fight Killian, get the sword, and rescue Sayla. And it's all very satisfying. We see that she's able to step into her kind of role as a ruler and as an alpha, that she's going to be able to like bring the bonded into a more healthy place and get rid of the toxicity of the bonding trials. However, there's still a lot of peril at the end of the novel. She's lost her mother, which is tragic, but also she discovers right at the very end that Sayla has been transformed into a siphon by Killian, which shocked me. I was surprised about that. And we also find out that the engagement bracelet that he gave her, that she still was wearing because she was kind of using it as a ruse to get his guards down, that is now stuck to her wrist, and Killian is using it to kind of siphon her magic and use it for himself, which makes him quite a formidable foe and weakens her. So while we've got quite a happy ending of her discovering her true lineage, discovering the truth about Killian, bringing down the king and getting her sister back, there is still so much left to do and left to uncover and romance to be had in Furybound, which I'm very excited for. And I thought it was such a good balance between like being satisfying for the reader, answering a lot of questions, but also setting up a lot of questions to go into book two with. I'm super excited to see where book two is going to take us. And I also want to know how many books are planned for the series. I think there's a confirmed book three, but I don't know if it's going to be longer than that. If you know, let me know in the comments. Let me know what your favourite part of the book was and what twist had you gagged. Which ones did you see coming? Were you like me? Did you predict quite a lot, but still had a few surprises in there? and let me know what theories you have about Furybound. I have one theory. I think her dad is not really dead and that he's going to show up, because at one point in the novel she referenced that all that was found of her father to bury was a finger. It's giving Peter Pettigrew. All they found of him was his finger, and he showed up as a rat with 9 fingers. So I think her father is going to be like that, and that maybe he is going to be a siphon and be on the other side of the border. I think maybe this could hold a key to how they're going to help Selah. Maybe she's going to stay a siphon, but maybe not all siphons have to be bad. I don't know. I think there could be something in there. And I also think something's going to happen with Jonah. I think he's got a part to play, otherwise, he would have been killed at the end of this novel. That wasn't satisfying, so I think that he must still be useful in some way, even if it's that he's going to be killed in the next book. And I absolutely see her and Stark falling in love and getting together. And I think the sex that they have isn't going to have this toxic dynamic to it. I think it's going to be a lot more equal and a lot more still spicy and still fun, but with more genuine feelings behind it. That's what I think. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any recommendations like this book that you think I'll enjoy, please tell me, and I will add it to the list. Subscribe for more. See you in the next one. Bye!